Hey y'all, you want to set your child up for success? Is your child struggling with a specific subject or need help with the subject? Is your child ahead, not getting challenged enough in class? Well, IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies while adapting to each child, meeting them where they are. Plus, IXL encourages students to become curious and empowers them to choose how to learn. Look, we homeschool our son. No doubt about it. He's more of a visual learner, and we use IXL, and Cindy teaches him, and there are so many different benefits to the program. It adapts to exactly what he needs in different areas. So IXL is the perfect supplement to your homeschool curriculum. IXL offers interactive practice problems, educational games, lessons, and video tutorials for every topic you're teaching at home. It's easy to use, time-saving. Everything on IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you're covering. IXL offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. Kids can explore any topic in any grade level. They aren't forced into a single learning path like they are on other programs. If you're homeschooling your child because they were falling behind or because they were too far ahead like our son, IXL is a great program to help them get the exact support they need. Kids love IXL's positive feedback awards and educational games. IXL is trusted by 15 million students worldwide and has proven to improve performance in over 75 scientific research studies. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Real Life, Real Crime listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. And don't forget, Real Life, Real Crime listeners get 20% off. Y'all, we really do use this product, and it's been a godsend.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Listen to that. Nothing beats a vinyl. Some technology just stands the test of time. Our technology not only brings the cool, it also brings the heat. At Mitsubishi Electric, we've been mastering and innovating heat pump technology since 1970. EcoDan, continued innovation in heating for home and business. Mitsubishi Electric, changes for the better.
Sugar in my coffee. It make me me, Lord. It make me me. And I want no sugar in my coffee. It make me me, Lord. It make me me.
Warning. Each episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, will contain descriptions of acts of violence or of a sexual nature and are for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. Welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime. I'm your host, Woody Overton, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. Today we're going to be talking about David and Christina Constance, a husband and wife team who raped children, including their own, but many different children for many years. In fact, David Constance, we found out through the course of the investigation, had been raping children for at least 25 years before he even met his wife, Christina. But I want to warn you that there's going to be a lot of graphic descriptions and sexual terms that were presented to me by the victims in this case, or the suspects in this case. So it may be a little bit shocking to hear, but I'm just going to tell it to you as it was told to me. All right. So on February 1st, 2005, I was working as a detective with the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. Our detective office was located in the Livingston Parish Courthouse in the town of Livingston, Louisiana. I came into the office and observed two ladies sitting across from my secretary, Tina Stafford. And Tina said, "Hey, Woody, these ladies need to talk to a detective. Do you have a moment for them?" And to be honest with you, I didn't. I was slammed. And at the time there was no specialized detective division in our office. I think we had 8 detectives total, and we worked everything from thefts to homicides and everything in between. And I was actually just returning to the office for a moment to grab another file to go in the field to arrest someone. But I could see the look on the ladies' faces, and I said, okay, there was nobody else in the office other than Tina. So I told him, I introduced myself to him. I said, "Hey, I'm Woody Overton. I'm a detective." And one lady introduced herself as Miss Kimberly Domain, and the other introduced herself as Christina Constance. And Miss Domain told me, she said, "My friend Christina has something she wants to tell you, but she doesn't want to get in trouble for it." I said, "Well, okay, well, y'all come back into my office and have a seat." So we went into my office. They sat down across from me, and I said, "Okay, then what's going on? Tell me why I'm here." And Christina Constance, unsolicited, stated, she said, "My husband," and I asked her, I said, "Who's your husband?" She said, "David Constance." She said, "My husband forced me to have sex with his nephew." And in the same breath, before I could say anything, when I first heard her say, "Okay, well, my husband, forced me to have sex with his nephew," I was thinking, well, I really wasn't thinking the worst at that time, right? That was another juvenile sex case, basically, in my mind. But almost in the same breath, she followed that up with, "And he made me suck my 7-year-old son's dick." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Stop and hold it right there. I said, "Don't say anything else. Miss Constance, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." I said, "You have the right to an attorney prior to and during question. You can't afford one. The court will appoint one for you." I said, "Do you understand your rights?" And she stated that she did. I then asked Miss Domain to go sit in the outer office and wait. Came back and provided Christina Constance with the standard Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office Miranda rights, a written form, in which I read out her rights again out loud from the form verbatim. And I had her sign and state that she understood her rights. And at the bottom of that form was a consent to questioning part. And it states that Christina Constance consented to answer questions without a lawyer present, and she knew what she was doing, and no threats or promises had been made to her. No type of coercion or anything was used. So once she signed those and dated them, I said, okay, you just have to start from the beginning, right? So let me back up for a second and tell you, Christina Constance, I would have guessed she was around 30 years old. Turned out she was 29, but she was probably 5'10", a little heavy set, long black hair, not overly attractive, but not, she wasn't a dog either, if you would. So and she was sitting there, she was just, I didn't get the sense that she was really worried about anything. And I come to find out later on, I think it was due to her low IQ, or I shouldn't say, probably lower IQ than most normal people, but by no means to the level of retardation or anything like that. So I told her, hey, Christina, tell me about you and your husband. She said, well, we've been married, but for the last month I've been living with Kimberly Domain, my friend who brought me here today. I said, well, what made you come forward now to tell me about these things? And she said, well, Kimberly's son, and I won't use his name because he was a juvenile at the time, but she told me, she said, Kimberly's son wrote me a note that said that
my husband, David, told him he could fuck me, her words, not mine, that he could fuck me and he wanted to know when we could do it. She said that Kimberly Domain found the note and confronted her about it. And when she did, and she was mad at Christina, it's like, what the hell is this? What's the deal here? And Christina said, well, Clutch, or that's David Constance's nicknames, Clutch or Double Clutch, because he drove a dump truck. And she said, Clutch forces me to have sex with kids. And she told Kimberly Domain about having sex with the Clutch's nephew and about Clutch forcing her to suck her son's penis, 7-year-old son's penis. And Kimberly was like, hey, look, you got to tell somebody, we got to go in. This isn't right. And Christina agreed. And so she came in freely and voluntarily. Now I asked her, I said, how long have y'all been separated for? And she said about around a month. And cause a lot of times in situations like this, people will come in and give false allegations, and I just want to see, gauge her truth level, if you would. But so what I did, I told her, I said, Christine, what I want you to do is write out for me a statement as to what about you having sex with this nephew and about him forcing you to perform oral sex on your 7-year-old son. I said, while you're doing that, I'm going to go make a couple of phone calls and just sit right here. Nobody's going to bother you, and I'll be back in a few minutes. I then went out and I spoke with Miss Domain, and she confirmed that she found the note from her juvenile son to Christina saying, hey, Clutch said I could fuck you, and when can we do it? Miss Domain was the mom was pissed, right? Rightfully so. But she said, Christina's kind of simple. She said, she's not retarded or anything like that, but her IQ is not that high. She said, so she was very open with me and told me about those two instances. So I called the chief of detectives, Stan Carpenter, and then I called my partner, Brian Smith, and I told him, I said, hey, Brian, you got to come in. This was kind of going to be a shit show. I ran it down to him real quick what was happening. And I said, this guy, if he's been doing this, you don't just start out sucking your own son's dick. He's obviously, it's going to be more in depth than this. So Brian came to the office, and by the time he got there, we went into my office and Christina had written up the statements, etc. And I introduced Brian, and we went over, tell me what happened with the nephew. And Christina said that when they were living in Holden, Louisiana, that the nephew came over, and Clutch, David Constance, wanted her to fuck him and to fuck the nephew. And he brought the nephew in the bedroom. He had Christina strip naked and get on the bed. And he was like, don't you want to fuck her? And the juvenile, his initials are TB, Tango Bravo. And TB, don't you want to fuck her? And he said no, that he was scared. And then TB went into the bathroom and he came back out. And David Constance was like, come on, you don't want to fuck her? You're a pussy. You don't want to fuck her? Look at it. She's naked. And then David Constance started to masturbate him through his pants, etc., and then forced him to undress and then get on the bed with Christina. And they laid side by side, and Christina stated that they started to kiss and French kiss, and then they were side by side and they had sexual intercourse, and that the boy didn't last that long, and he ejaculated inside of her. I then asked her, I said, well, tell me about him forcing you to, suck your son's penis. And you see, in cases like this, you can't let your emotions show naturally. This is hard to hear. I guess as an old detective, you become desensitized to it, but I'm looking at her, I'm engaging with eye contact, etc., like I'm genuinely concerned and I'm on her side, if you will. And I'm conveying all this through body language and being in a non-threatening manner. And she stated that she woke up in her bed in the middle of the night because she felt movement in the bed, and that the 7-year-old son was in the middle of the bed. It was a big bed. She was on one side. The 7-year-old son was in the middle. And then David Constance was on the other side when they had gone to sleep, but she woke up because there was movement in the bed. And she looks down and she sees David Constance performing oral sex. She said a blowjob. She said he was giving my son a blowjob. And when I said, what are you doing? She said that David grabbed her by the head of the hair and forced her down to her son's penis, erect penis, believe it or not, if a 7-year-old can get erect, and forced her to perform oral sex on him. But she said he forced me to suck his dick until he was finished. So I told Christina, I stopped her and I said, look, we have some things that we're going to do. We're going to ask you to sit tight. I said, I'm going to get a statement from Miss Domain, a written statement, and then send her home. And I said, you're not under arrest, but we have to look into this. So I went out and had Brian get the statement from Miss Domain, and we ran a criminal history on David Constance. The criminal history showed that he had been arrested and pled nolo contende, which is basically guilty. You're not stating that you're guilty where you could be sued civilly. So he pled nolo contende to contributing to delinquency of a juvenile. So based off of Christina's constant statement that she observed her husband performing sex on their 7-year-old son, I obtained an arrest warrant for David Constance for aggravated rape, which in the state of Louisiana, aggravated rape is penetration, no matter how slight, whether it's oral, anal, or vaginal person. I think at the time it was under 13 years of age. Now it's 12 years or under. And so we had that arrest warrant made, and we also obtained a search warrant for David Constance's residence because Christina stated that he did have some type of child porn or she believed that he had some type of child porn in the residence. And we went out, knocked on the door. It was a trailer in a trailer park. Knocked on the door, and there was a large Alaskan husky, almost looked like a wolf. I'll never forget it, but that was growling at the door, etc. And David Constance came to the door, and I observed him, and I thought, this guy looks like a little troll, right? Certainly not handsome or anything like that, but he was short, a little bit of beard and mustache, and just, I wouldn't even call him plain looking.
It's a season of giving back. That's why Kia is expanding our partnership with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and making a donation for every eligible new car purchase during the holidays through Kia's Accelerate the Good program. Kia, movement that inspires.
Kia will donate $8 for every new Kia vehicle that is purchased or leased at authorized Kia dealerships and delivered to retail customers between November 11th, 2022 and December 31st, 2022, with a guaranteed minimum donation of $1 million to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. See kia.com/season of giving back for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
If not ugly. But so he opened the door, and when I told him, I see you, David Constance. He said, yes, my name is Woody Overton. You're under arrest for aggravated rape of the 7-year-old juvenile. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about, etc. My wife left a month ago. She's just trying to do this to get back at me, etc. So I stopped him. I said, listen, man, I advised him his Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during questioning. You can't afford one, a court will appoint one for you. And I said, I'm not trying to question you at this time. So we have a search warrant for your residence. And then we'll be taking you in to book you. And if you want to give a statement, you can give a statement at that time. And so we searched the residence. We found stuff. We found some computers and things like that would have to be sent off for analysis. And, we found some porn, like barely legal teen hustler magazines and stuff like that, but nothing that was outright obvious child porn. But we took him in, and he kept stating that this was all his wife trying to get back at him, and he didn't know what she was talking about, etc. And we booked him on the charge. Then we continued our interview with Christina Constance and discovered that they had been having sex had sex or some type of sexual contact or molestation with 13 different kids since they had been married, just since David and Christina had been married. And that these kids, a lot of them now, because it's been going on for so long, a lot of them now would have been adults. So it was our job to find the ones who weren't adults yet and get them to what we call a CAC, or Child Advocacy Center, forensic interview, in which the victim or alleged victim would go in and have a trained professional forensic child interviewer find out, or if the child will talk, find out what did or didn't happen in the case. But our problem was that this case was so massive because there were so many different potential victims in so many different parishes spread all throughout Louisiana. That what happened was David Constance MO, or his modus operandi, was he would befriend families that were very, very poor. And whenever he had moved to a new town, he'd find a family that had kids in the age range he liked to offend against. And he would befriend them and become good friends with the parents, and then take the kids for candy or hamburgers or whatever. And then eventually lead up to where the kids would come spend the night at his house, and where he had more control, and he would groom his victims as it went along and ultimately lead up to the sexual acts. But so he used his position and his friendship with these families. And these people, some of them are just simple salt of the earth people. None of them were educated. And most of them didn't have jobs, etc. And so when David Constance would come in and buy their kids things or buy them the family meals and stuff like that, and then when he offered to take the kids for the whole weekend, I mean, that was a great break for the family, right? So that that's 2 or 3 days that they wouldn't have to worry about feeding their kids. I mean, that's just how poor they were. And I mean, these families must have thought they hit the jackpot when, Clutch shows up and starts buying meals and taking the family places, etc. And now I'll go into more detail in a little bit on some of the specific victims' families, but when I say they're short of being homeless, there's no way a person could be poor, and there's no way that the general consensus of the victims, no way they could be any less educated. I mean, just most of them on disability. All of them were every one of them was on welfare or public assistance, etc. So we go back, like I said, we're talking to Christina Constance, and we start a general timeline of what happened and how she came to know David Constance, etc. And it turned out that David was with Christina's older sister in a relationship when he was 18 and Christina was approximately, I think, 9 or 10 years old. And David started having sex with Christina, or actually they were raping her.
Hey, y'all, let me tell you about Mochi. Mochi is a telehealth platform that connects patients seeking medication-based weight loss treatment with board-certified doctors and dietitians to help them determine the best treatment options to accomplish that goal. Mochi's program is completely virtual, meaning you can access their services anywhere in the United States, and you will be meeting with their team online. You deserve doctors that listen. Mochi is dedicated to providing holistic, patient-centered care that prioritizes overall well-being with the goal of transforming how weight management is approached. Mochi Health takes a holistic approach to weight loss that includes visit with board-certified doctors, nutrition consultations, and medications delivered to your door. Science-backed medications including GLP-1s like Ozempic and generic compound versions, affordable and accessible regardless of insurance coverage. With Mochi, their dietitians work hand in hand with your medication to create personalized nutrition plans that fit your lifestyle. Reach your weight loss goals with science-backed, FDA-approved GLP-1 medications and support from real doctors and guidance from registered dietitians and help with making easy and sustainable changes to achieve results. Y'all have seen this. My wife has done it. My brother-in-law has done it. One of my best friends is doing it, and it really is an amazing process that works. So get started at joinmochi.com and use code RLRC to receive $40 off. That's join, joinmochi.com, and use code RLRC to receive $40 off and let Mochi help change your life. Hey ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone support and supplement. It's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC.
When she was that age, and it went on until she was 14 or 15, and David Constance had Christina convinced that they were in love, etc., and they actually ran away together in 1991. And that's when he was arrested. I think it was in Texas, and brought back on the charges of numerous charges of child rape, etc., kidnapping, which they pled it down. Great legal system pled it down to one count of contributing to delinquency of a juvenile, to which he pled no low contendere, and that's it. So they went on from there, and I guess the family dropped it because they figured she was old enough and as a teenager or whatever. I don't know. I don't understand it, but the certainly, I know for a fact that just to the profile of that type of pedophile, he didn't just start out with Christina. He probably had been molesting people for years before that. And then he used his relationship with Christina's older sister to have her in age range that he liked to offend against. And he was able to groom her and bring her along. And then when they ultimately end up getting married, the crimes escalated, and he groomed her to bringing other kids into the situation. And we were able to find 13 victims that were still juveniles, but Christina accounted for over 20 victims that they had some type of molestation or rape or intercourse with or inappropriate actions with since they had been together, since they had been married. So our partner and I, Brian Smith, were faced with a huge dilemma and a huge task of trying to find all these victims or alleged possible victims. Now, you remember when people are this poor, like the one time I'm going to tell you about, they move like almost every month, but because either they'll lose a little job they might have had for a couple of weeks, or they move into a new place and they can't afford it. So they get evicted and they move from parish to parish. And a lot of times a lot of the victims were even out of state. We had no way of finding them. So some of them, Christina couldn't even tell us who the names were. she just had forgotten. It was such a large number of kids that they did this with. And it was boys and girls that they raped. It didn't matter to them. And David, Constance, double clutch, used Christina as bait in most cases, or used her to facilitate these rapes. And so my partner and I scheduled Child Advocacy Center interviews for the 13 victims that we found in all the different parishes, etc. And during the CAC interviews, a child is brought in and they're not introduced to the police, and they get straight into the room with a forensic interviewer, and it's set up like a little playroom. They'll have stuffed animals and coloring books, etc., and toys on the floor, and they let the kid go in and play for a little bit, and they talking to them, not about anything sexual, what have you, at first, and then they begin the interview where the interviewer introduces herself and then says, "This is where I work, and then do you know what I do?" And you have to remember these victims that we had, the 13 that we had, were anywhere from like 9 years old up to 17 years old. And so each one was done independently, and the interviewer had to take a different approach for each one. Like on the younger children, they would say, "Okay, do you know what it is, the difference between telling a lie or telling the truth?" And the kid would say yes. And she said, "Okay, so if I told you the walls in this room were brown, would that be a lie or the truth?" The walls were yellow. So the kid would say, "No, that would be a lie." And she said, "Why would that be a lie?" And the child would say, "Because the walls are yellow." And it would be okay. And each interview starts out this way, where they establish a baseline and that the child understands the truth. So they go through the process, and then the interviewer will say, "Okay, so do you know what it is that I do here?" And the child would either say yes or no. And then the interviewer would explain that their job was to talk to children who sometimes may have had something bad happen to them or not. And then that it was a safe place, and they could use whatever words they wanted to use if they had anything to say. And then you weren't going to get any trouble for anything that you said or didn't say. But the one thing that they wanted them to do was just be truthful. And so generally they would start out with something like, "Tell me what your name is, and when were you born? Where do you live? Who lives with you?" And then they ask them, do you know why you're here today? And that's generally where the child would open up and begin to give the details of the crime. Now, law enforcement, or we would be in another room monitoring the interview through a closed caption television system, and we had one-way communication with the interviewer. Okay, so if there was something that they left out at the interview or during the middle of the interview, if there's something that came up that we need to know about from an investigation standpoint, we could speak to the interviewer, and they had an earpiece in and they could hear it. But anyway, they would start in and they were walking through it, and they never asked any leading question. It's simply letting the child state what did or didn't happen, and they would follow it up with repeating what it is that the child said. And say, "Okay, so what you're telling me is this, and this happened." And the child would be like, "Yes." And then they may say something like, "Did anything else happen?" And the child would say yes or no. And if it was yes, then can you tell me about that? And then they would go on. At the end of the interviews, the children would leave with their guardians or parents or whomever it was, and we would speak with them. Based off the interview, we as detectives could go and sign a warrant if we felt there was enough probable cause and the child was being truthful. We could go get a warrant signed and go arrest the person ourselves, or we could refer it to the district attorney, and they could take it to the grand jury and let the grand jury vote whether or not they believe there was enough evidence to get an arrest warrant. Or we would tell them, we'd send it to the grand jury if we didn't believe there was anything there and we weren't going to get on the warrants. We'd send it to the grand jury and let the grand jury come back and say, "No, there's nothing here," or "There's not enough here to move forward." So what I'm going to do now is tell you about 4 of the CAC interviews that are relevant to this case. So back to the Child Advocacy Center interviews. My partner, Detective Brian Smith, and I scheduled the interviews through the family members in the CASA worker. First one we did was Christina's juvenile son, who was approximately 9 years old at the time of the interview. We're going to use his initials. They are JK. JK was no longer living with Christina and hadn't been for some time. Christina's sister, who's married and had children of her own, she was a nurse, a very nice lady. He had gone to live with her full time. So she was the one we actually scheduled to bring JK in for the interview at the Child Advocacy Center in Livingston, Louisiana. And he arrived, and the forensic interviewer was Jennifer Nolan, who's an absolutely fantastic children and fantastic interviewer. Probably out of the hundreds of interviews I've listened to, she's just by far, hands down, the best with children, period. And so she greeted JK and brought him into the room and went through the how to tell the difference between right and wrong, etc. The whole basic spiel that's done on every victim or alleged victim. And then she asked him, JK, do you know why you're here? And he said, yes, because of what Clutch did to me. And she said, well, what did Clutch do to you? JK stated that Clutch, or David Constance, would touch his privates or make JK touch David's privates. And when he said privates, Jennifer asked him, what do you mean by that? And she had a diagram of a child. It's just on a piece of paper. It's not colorized or anything. It's just the outline of a human being or a child. And she said, can you show me on the papers where you mean privates? And he circled where the penis would be. And then she said, okay, so how did he touch you there? And he stated that almost every day from when he was 7 to 9 years old, that Clutch touched his private parts with his hands and mouth. He stated that Clutch put his private in JK's mouth. JK also said that Clutch made him touch Clutch's privates with his hands and mouth. And he went into more details about the different times, like, because Jennifer would say, okay, and where were you when this one happened? And was anybody else home and stuff like that? He never stated the incident about his mother giving him oral sex when they were in the bed with David, but he went into really graphic detail for almost.
It's a season of giving back. That's why Kia is expanding our partnership with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and making a donation for every eligible new car purchase during the holidays through Kia's Accelerate the Good program. Kia, movement that inspires.
Kia will donate $8 for every new Kia vehicle that is purchased or leased at authorized Kia dealerships and delivered to retail customers between November 11th, 2022 and December 31st, 2022, with a guaranteed minimum donation of $1 million to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. See kia.com/season of giving back for details.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.
10-year-old can do for a traumatic event, right? So I'm sitting in the room with my partner watching this, and I just want to go kill this guy. This kid is I think he was in the 4th grade at this time, straight A student since he got out of the house with his mom and moved in with his aunt. You know, straight A student, very well spoken, you can see his intelligence level probably far surpassed that of his mother, Christina Constance. Anyway, he just was a little sweet boy. And to listen to him tell about how Clutch would put his penis in his mouth over and over again until white stuff would come out in his mouth. Yeah, it was tough to listen to. Certainly not my first child rape case, but you listen to it and you go through. And it's just probably too many instances for JK to remember, but he gave enough different varied accounts of different places in the trailer where it would happen, et cetera. You know, he was crying a little bit. It was hard for him to talk about. And then towards the end of the interview, Jennifer said, JK, is there anything else that happened like that? And he said no. And he had calmed down. He wasn't crying anymore. And she said, well, is there anything else bad that happened to you when you lived there with him? And I'll never forget this as long as I live. JK started just breaking down, crying again. And I was like, oh God, what's he going to say? You know, did he anally raped him or something? He was just as distraught about what he was about to say as about all the oral sex that he had to give or receive from David Constance. And she said, you know, it's okay, JK, you can tell me what it is. And he said, well, when we lived at the trailer in Holden, evidently there was a lot of people that lived there, like 8 or 9 of them. Clutch was paying for this other family, some relatives to live there also. So when we lived in Holden, every time it came time to eat, he said, I was always hungry. And she said, why? And he said, because every time it came time for supper time, Clutch would make me go out in the yard and pick up his cigarette butts. And I couldn't come in to eat until I got done picking up his cigarette butts. And he said, by the time I got inside to eat, all the food was gone. He said, so I was always hungry. And he's crying, right? And you could tell, I mean, it's a really hard thing for him. And I guess in his young mind, he doesn't know the difference about rape and everything that happened to him. But so the interview ended. Brian Smith and I went out and met with the sister, the one that's a nurse that has him in the family. And I pulled her to the side and I said, hey, look, he stated these different sex acts happen, et cetera. And I said, you know, at the very end, when she asked him, was there anything else? He started crying and told about how he never got to eat because there were so many people that lived in the house, and Clutch would make him go outside and pick up his cigarette butts, and he couldn't have any food until he got done picking up cigarette butts out of the yard that Clutch would sit around all day and smoke and flick the butts out in the yard. So by the time he got in to eat, there was no food left for him. So he was always hungry. And she started crying. The sister did. She said, oh my God. She said, I noticed when he first moved in with me that he was stealing food from the table, and I didn't know why. And she said, you know, I didn't confront him about it, but she said, I was cleaning his room and I looked under his bed and there was a pile of food hidden under his bed by the back post. The bedpost that was against the wall. And she said, now I know why, because he never knew when he was going to get to eat again. So that was a very real concern for this young child. And then that sticks with me to this day. Even when I smoked, I would never flick a cigarette butt out of my own yard, right? What kind of asshole does that to a little kid? But JK was that family, and they're taking him in. He's a straight A student, and every Friday they have family night, which is they play board games and order in pizzas and stuff like that. So, but overall, he had recovered he bounced back, I guess you would say, when put in the right environment. We did a lot of CAC interviews. I think, like I told you earlier, 13 different victims. And the TB, juvenile TB, which is the nephew, I told you about that when he came in and said the same thing. It was Jennifer Nolan that did it, and they went through the process, and he stated that Clutch would invite him over to eat or take him to get a hamburger or say, hey, TB, you want to take a ride in my dump truck? He was like, yeah, he thought that was the coolest thing. Then he'd give him like $20 to wash his dump truck and stuff like that. And then technically Constance was doing as a pedophile, was grooming this kid and setting him up. And then he said that one day, he brought him inside the house and he said, hey, you want to fuck Christina? And he said, no, I don't want to. And, you know, I don't want to fuck her. And Clutch started harassing him, calling him a pussy, and he's saying lots of ugly and mean, threatening things to him, and calling him a fag and a homo. And then had Christina go in the bedroom and get naked on the bed, and he brought him in there and he started rubbing on him through his pants. And the TB said he was scared. You know, he was frightened, but he said he wanted to go to the bathroom. So he went to the bathroom. He said he was looking for a window to jump out of, and there wasn't one. The trailer window in the bathroom was too small for him to get out of. So he knew he had to come back out. And when he did, Clutch forced him to take his clothes off and then get on the bed. and have sex with Christina. And he stated that he got on the bed, like I said earlier, and, they started kissing and they were laying side by side and naked and then they had sex. It's the same profile on how Clutch, even that he was related to him as his nephew, it's the same thing. It was a poor family. The TB's father was poor. I think he was disabled, et cetera. So anytime he would get to go over to Clutch's house, it was a big deal, and it was an ease of burden on the family. So that, again, it's the same profile. The next two victims I want to talk about, the initials are JF, who's white female juvenile, and KF, and they were very, very poor. And I think in the time that this case went on and we spoke to them and went to visit them later on with the district attorney, et cetera. They lived in like 5 different residences and they had nothing. And the family members were like mentally handicapped and the parents and stuff like that, the public assistance, welfare, what have you. But they were sweet kids and they were brother and sister. KF was the brother. JF was the younger sister. And they stated that numerous years ago that Clutch had befriended their family and started buying food for them and then taking the kids places and stuff like that. So, in fact, KF stated at one point that David Constance actually lived with their family for a short period of time. And then after he moved out, he would come and get KF and get him to spend the weekend with him at wherever it was he was living at the time with Christina. And during this time, he said that David Constance made KF suck David's dick, Clutch's dick, and that Clutch would suck KF's dick. This is all during the CAC interview. And so he's saying the words, right? He's a very poorly educated, simple child. I mean, he wasn't a child. He was a bit older, a young teenager, I guess, 14, 15. And he said it happened all the time and that Clutch made him fuck Christina. And that would happen every time. And he said one time that Clutch pinned him to the wall and put his dick in his butt. And he said it hurt. He said, but I kept clenching my butt to make his dick pop out. And when he was holding me against the wall, he said, I kept telling Clutch, it hurts, and don't do that to me. But he kept doing it anyway, until Clutch came or finished. And this happened, over a long period of time. Now, JF, KF's little sister, started staying with them at some point in 2005 on the weekends. When JF came in for her CASA interview, she maybe 11 years old, something like that, flat chested. I mean, she looks like a child, right? And she stated that in 2005, she'd gone to spend the night at Clutch's house in Livingston, and Christina was there, and that they took her into the back bedroom, and he took her pants off and put his penis inside of her. She didn't say penis. She said put his dick inside of me, and she said it hurt. It made my bottom hurt real bad. And Christina watched the whole thing. And she kept telling him, she said, I was crying. I kept telling him to stop, but he kept doing it. And she related several more instances, including that Christina and her put on a lingerie show for Clutch. That Christina actually took her in the room one time.
Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdown scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gift to the coolest finds for kids to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. Hey y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glace, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/real life. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had.
I said, let's try on these panties, just try on this bra, and let's go model them for Clutch. And it ended up that Clutch performed some type of sex act on her and had Christina do the same thing in orally and tried to penetrate her again vaginally, etc. So the list of victims and the CAC interviews just go on and on and on. Like I said, we did approximately 13 that I know of that I can remember. And it basically was always the same story that David Constance got them over and alone with Christina, and either they both had sex with the kid or like one female juvenile evidently was already sexually active and she had sex with Christina. And when David tried to join in, he got mad because she wouldn't let him. She was like 14. She was willing to have sex with Christina, but not with David. And it just went on and on. There's other family members that he did. And like I said, even Christina, he started raping her when he was dating her older sister. So there were 13 that were still juveniles. There's a reason I'm telling you this, and it'll become clear in a minute. 13 different juveniles that we were able to draw up warrants for and charge with David and Christina Constance either singularly or in joint on the charges for what they did to these kids. And we kept piling on the charges as you can imagine. These interviews took, I think we worked like 30 or 45 days straight, just doing CAC interviews and finding witnesses, etc. And so during this time, the district attorney, the assistant district attorney assigned to the case, his name was Leanne Malnar, and I was keeping her briefed on the case as it went along. And because the aggravated rape charges had to go before the grand jury. In the state of Louisiana, aggravated rape can carry up to the death penalty. which in the history of the state of Louisiana, there's only been one person that's ever been charged with the death penalty for raping a child under 13. So this was potentially a landmark case, and the fact that we had this wide range of victims, many different jurisdictions, et cetera. But the briefing, Brian and I, my partner, would brief Leanne on a regular basis. And once we wrapped it up, it became time to bring it to the grand jury. Even though we had probable cause to make the arrest warrants and charge them with things that we did, there were a lot more charges that the district attorney wanted the grand jury to weigh in on because of the life imprisonment. Aggravated rape is going to either be life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Aggravated rape of a child or a person, an elderly person. It doesn't apply in this case. So anyway, we're talking to Leanne, and she's all fired up. She was pretty new as a prosecutor. I think she was very intelligent, but this is her first big case. So it came time 2 days before the grand jury, and I was in her office. She said, look, I'm meeting with Scott Perilou, who's the district attorney for the 21st Judicial, and Charlotte, who was Charlotte Hebert at the time. She's now a judge in Livingston. She said, I'm meeting with them tomorrow. We're going to discuss the death penalty before we go to the grand jury the next day. In my mind and Brian's mind, it's like, this is a slam dunk, right? We got all these kids saying this, and we have all the CAC interviews, et cetera. And she said, well, we'll call you tomorrow for the meeting. All day went the next day, and I never got a call from them. So the following morning at 9:00, the grand jury convenes. Now, grand jury is a secret meeting of 12 people, and nobody knows what their names are. It's not on the record, et cetera. And what they do is the district attorney will present a case to the grand jury to find out if there's enough evidence to proceed with an indictment and to carry it to trial. And the grand jury simply listens to the evidence, and they will recommend, yes, there is enough to true bill this perpetrator. True bill meaning, yes, we find there's enough evidence to take this to trial, or they'll no bill it, and basically saying that we don't believe it and there's not enough evidence here. So I was puzzled because I kept trying to call Leanne the day before about the meeting and never got her, et cetera. And that morning at 8:45, I was outside the grand jury room, and Leanne comes up with Charlotte. Now, Charlotte Hebert was just bulldog with bulldogs, right? She's the head prosecutor, not the district attorney itself, but the number one prosecutor for the 21st Judicial. And anytime there was any type of death penalty case or anything major like that, she was always the lead chair. And she's simply probably the best prosecutor I ever saw work in a courtroom, work a jury, et cetera, and murder trials and what have you. So she comes up with Charlotte, and she said, hey, we want to talk to you for a minute. I'm like, cool. So we go in. I said, we're going for the death penalty. And Charlotte says, no, we're not going for the death penalty, and we're not going for any aggravated rapes. We're going to drop it all down to sexual batteries and attempted sexual batteries. It said, we do not want you, Woody, to say anything about aggravated rape or incest or anything like that. And I was like, bullshit. I didn't say that out loud, but I was thinking, you ditched me all day yesterday because the amount of time and work that we put on this and the amount of victims that we have, just the ones that we interviewed. And this guy's been getting away with this for 25 years. And now you're telling me you're going to hamstring me before we go in for the grand jury. And I can only present a couple cases, and I can't say aggravated rape on any of them. I was thinking, fuck you, watch and see. So we go in, and they introduced me to the grand jury, and it starts out, you get sworn in. It starts out, they ask you who you are and where you're employed, etc. And they said, okay, on February 1, 2005, did you meet Christina Constance? I said, yes, I did. And they said, tell us facts about the case. Well, this is a time when I didn't hold anything back. As far as I was concerned, they could fire me. They could take my badge. They could take my gun, but they weren't going to take my honor. Not on this case. I went in and I laid out the whole story from A to Z, even though Leanne tried to cut me off several times. I kept going, and I said, and we charged him with aggravated rape. This one, I explained the acts as the children explained them, right? So all the gory details. Now, you have to remember, on a jury or a grand jury, either one in a courtroom or a secret grand jury, these are regular people. These are people who get up and go to work every day and have jobs. And they have children and grandchildren or brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews, and they don't hear shit like we did every day. So when I'm in there talking about all these kids getting raped and the husband and wife doing them together, and they're doing their own kids and everybody else's kids. I mean, they were like 3 ladies that were crying openly. One man, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He was so red in the face. And the guy that was sitting to my left at the end of the table was furious. Finally, I wasn't even halfway through with the story. He slams his hands down on the table. He says, Detective Overton, I want to know how this son of a bitch has been getting away with this for 25 years. And he was arrested way back then. And all these years, he raped all these kids and nobody knew about it. And nobody did anything about it. How's he been getting away with it all these years? And I stopped him. I said, you know what, sir? I turned and I looked at Leanne and Charlotte, the assistant district attorneys, and said, that is a really good question on how our legal system can drop stuff like this to lower charges than it is. Like, in 1991, he was only charged with contributing to the delinquency of a juvenile when actually he had been raping the kid. I said, why don't you ask the district attorney that's sitting right here how this happens in cases like this? Charlotte, to say that she was probably a little bit mad at me is an understatement. She stood up and she stopped. She said, okay, look, y'all, let's stop. I want to take a break at this point. We're going to call a recess, and, y'all can go to the bathroom or whatever. I'll be back in a few minutes. And I knew she was pissed, and Leanne followed her out. And they came back. They were gone for like 35, 40 minutes. And when they came back, they called me in the hallway. And Charlotte said, Woody, just got off the phone with Scott, the district attorney, Scott Perley. And she said, I told him how upset the people were, et cetera. She said, we're going to go for 4 counts of aggravated rape. And she said, we're only going to do 4, the 4 victims, TB, Christina's son, and JF and KF. And so I said, that's fine. I mean, I'm good with that. I mean, how many life sentences? Oh, she said no death penalty, right? To make it clear, to put somebody to death, and it actually costs more money to put a person to death than it does to house them for life, because of the cost of appeals. It runs like $3 or $4 million over 18 to 25 year span average, the appeals process. So they sit on death row for all these years, and whatever parish it is, in Louisiana, we have parishes, not counties. Whatever parish it is that gets the conviction has to pay for the entire process, appeals process. So and I understand their point on that, on not going for the death penalty. It had never been done before. Only one person had been charged with it, and it wasn't successful. So they said, we'll go for 4 counts of aggravated rape. And so we went back in. I presented those 4 cases. I told them we were changing it. And I asked them for these 4 victims for TB, Christina's son, and JF and KF. And I presented those 4, and I walked out, and naturally they came back and fully indicted them, true billed them. And then we went to trial. And God, the whole process, I think it had to be a record speed time. I think it was maybe 9 to 11 months first arrest to the time that we went to trial. Sometime before the trial began, Liam Malinar, the assistant district attorney, wanted to meet the victims that were taken to trial. So we went and met with TB, and of course she met with Christina's son. And then we went to meet with JF and KF. And they had moved, JF and KF's parents had moved again. So it was a real chore in actually finding them. And the only way we found them was through Department of Social Services. We found out where they were receiving their welfare at, food stamps. And went to meet them. And it was a little bitty, like single trailer, almost no furniture in it. At the time, Leanne was like 8 months pregnant, or maybe more. She was about to give birth, right? So we go in and I introduce her to the kids and to the family and everything. And such simple, good people, but in telling you how they think and how their thought process works. Their mother was like, "Oh Lord, we love you, Mr. Woody, and we love you, and we're so glad to see you again. And that double clutch, he sure was something. And I never let nobody touch my babies again. My babies will never go stay with anybody again, ever, Mr. Woody. I'm telling you, ever." She said, "Unless you want to bring them to your house, Mr. Woody, they can go stay with you. I like you. We trust you." And I was like, "Oh God." In the middle of it, little JF she's staring at Leanne and Leanne's pregnant stomach. And she says, "Miss Leanne." And Leanne turns to us and she said, "Yeah." She says, "Miss Leanne?" She said, "Yeah, Jeff, go ahead." And she said, "I got a question for you." And she said, "What's that, Jeff?" She said, "Is that Mr. Woody's baby in your belly?" And I about fell out on the floor laughing. And I don't think Leanne turned beet red. She was like, "No, that's my husband's baby in my belly." So just like I said, good salt of the earth people who don't know anybody, and just absolutely the profile of the victims that David double clutch Constance preyed upon. The people who really, he must have felt like a mental giant compared to them, like Einstein in a room full of kindergartners or something. When we went to trial, they had the Honorable Judge Beth Wolf, who is, she is something. She had, that year prior, she had just been elected judge. And I watched her in court one afternoon when they bring the prisoners in, and these are people rearrested for whatever charges or being sentenced for whatever charges and pleading out to whatever charges. I watched Judge Beth Wolf give away more years in prison sentences in one afternoon than all the other judges in my entire career I'd seen other than life without charge cases. I watched her give away more years to bad guys than any other judge I'd ever seen. So we got a trial. Judge Beth Wolf is a judge, and they picked the jury, and we go through, and I testified, and then of course I was sequestered, which means I couldn't be in the courtroom, but the 4 kids came in and testified, and some other witnesses. But it took, I was able to come back in for the closing arguments, and it took the judge gave the jury their instructions, and they went to deliberate, right? Then I have a deputy that stands outside the door to guard the jury from whatever, or anybody from intruding or interfering with the jury. And they were gone for less than 35 minutes, I think, total. And everybody was shocked. Never had a verdict come back this fast. And it came back, and the jury found David Constance guilty on all 4 counts of aggravated rape. And Judge Beth Wolf sentenced him to life without parole to Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. And he got 4 life sentences. So, and afterwards, the deputy that was standing outside the door, he said, "Woody, it took them longer to pick a jury foreman once the jury was retired to vote on the case." He said, "I've been doing this a long time." He said, "I was listening through the door." He said, "It took them longer to pick the jury foreman than it did to convict David Constance." He said it took 1 vote. And then he said then they didn't want to come out too fast, so they sat around for a few minutes talking. But it was, it was slam dunk all the way, as it should be. Now, Christina Constance, I think, eventually ended up to pleading to taking 20 years. They dropped it down so it wouldn't be another trial. I think she took 20 years. And the funny thing about it is, when going back to talking about her mentality, et cetera, is she used to send me a letter every year at Christmas time addressed to the sheriff's office from prison, asking me, but please make sure her kids had good Christmas presents. So, and going on, hey, Detective Overton, how are you doing? Hope you're well. I'm doing fine. I know it's Christmas time coming up again. And if you would, can you please make sure my kids have good Christmas presents? So, and that's a little anecdote there, but it just goes to show you the mentality of her. And so David Constance goes to Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola for 4 consecutive life sentences. So he should die there. And that leaves us with a part of a program we like to call the sphincter scale. And on that scale, 1 sphincter is barely even a bad guy, and 10 is the worst of the worst. David Constance gets our first 10 sphincters, and he is truly the worst of the worst. And I truly believe he should have gotten the death penalty. If anybody ever, the intent of the law was ever written for anybody to have it, it should have been him, due to his lifelong rapes and destroying kids' lives. And Christina Constance, I would give her 7.5 out of 10 on the sphincter scale. And the reason that for the 7.5 is due to the fact that she was groomed from the time that she can remember, but certainly before she was a teenager, by Constance and of her lower mental IQ. And, I don't want to say totally she's a product of her environment. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with that. But, anyone who sucks their 7-year-old's penis still deserves at least 7.5 sphincters. And with that, we would like to thank y'all for listening and hope you enjoyed this broadcast. www.realliferealcrime.com. Hit us up and let us know what you think, and leave us your rating, what you think David Double Clutch Constance and Christina Constance should get on the sphincter scale, and we'll respond. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Good night.
Oh, she do me love, she do me. I don't want nobody, mama. Oh, she do me, Lord. Oh, she do me. Oh, now.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.
New on Curiosity Stream. Hidden in the heart of Africa, a once vibrant, surprisingly advanced world. Sound familiar? Marvel at the real-life genius of early African civilizations on Lost Kingdoms of Africa. Plus, it's penguins. Grab your tuxedo and march this way. We're celebrating our favorite fish-frenzied flightless birds. Everyone's doing the waddle on Penguin Party. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. And for a limited time, get 40% off our annual plan. That's just $1 a month. Visit CuriosityStream.com.